Serious, in the spirit of October, what's the creepiest or most paranormal experience that has happened to you? In high school I went on a beach trip with some friends. We took two separate cars because we had so many people. It was just me and my buddy in the second car following our other friends home. And it's late, like 1 or 2 in the morning. Well, about halfway home, in the middle of fucking nowhere, my friend, who's driving, is telling me a story. We were coming up on a lunge-garching turn, surrounded by grass fields on either side, and on the right side of us there's a house that grabbed my attention. The reason this particular house caught my eye was because number 1, there was no driveway leading up to the house, and number 2, the only reason I was even able to see the house in the first place was because there was a single red light on illuminating the patio. Well, as we're making the turn, all I can do is just stare at this house, almost as if I was in a trance. As we passed the house and my gaze turns to my friend's back seat, there's a fucking woman's face staring back at me. I just remember screaming what the fuck and whipping my head back around. It was probably a solid 5 minutes before I could get my voice back and explain to my friend what happened. To this day I still don't think he believes me. I have 2 distinct ones. First one, I was 18 and driving home from my security guard job at around 10:30 p.m. Our store closed at 10 o'clock, and due to regulations pertaining to my job, I always had to leave no later than 10:30, so my actions are pretty routine and regular. I clock out and get into my car at around 10:15 to 10:20. Next thing I remember, I am sitting in the driveway of the house. It is 10:38. My house is around 28 miles, or a 30 to 40 minute drive. I cannot remember beyond starting the car in the parking lot. I've had lost memory happen before while driving, but there should be no physical way I could complete that drive in the time allotted. I went back on my next shift and pulled the camera footage. Clock out time was 10:19 p.m. I walk to my car and get in, pulling out if the lot at 10:25 p.m. I even tried to replicate making the drive in that amount of time, and even at unsafe speeds the quickest I could make it was by 10:50. Still have no idea what happened during that drive. Second one. June 30, 2006. I wake out of a dead sleep at 2:32 a.m. No sound or anything, just bolted wide awake. Nobody in my apartment to wake me. Very conscious and aware of my surroundings. I fall back asleep about 30 minutes later and think nothing of it. I get a call the next day at work from my aunt that my mother had passed in the night. We were fairly estranged, she was in poor health, but her death was fairly sudden for her condition. My aunt had checked on her at around 7 the prior evening and then found her deceased at 8 or so the next morning. A few months later I got her death certificate in the mail. I had requested it for settling some legal issues. Coroner had listed time of death at 2 to 3 a.m. I was at the Whaley Haunted House in San Diego. When I would aim my Motorola flip phone camera at the door frame towards the room, it would get grainy and flicker. Okay. So for background, my great-uncle died when I was in 3rd grade, but our family still has family reunions at that house. So a few years after great-uncle's death, at one of these reunions, I walk into the dining room and look across the table at my mom, looking for something to eat. Standing off to her right, sort of behind her, is the dead great-uncle, smiling and looking at his niece/my mom. Since we hadn't visited often in the years since his death, seeing him in his house didn't strike me as unusual. I blinked, he was gone, and it clicked. That whole side of my family is really close, so I'm not too surprised that he showed up to see everyone. Then again, another great-uncle died maybe a week later. Almost a decade later, and that's still the strangest thing that's happened to me. This one isn't as much spooky, but it is paranormal. When I was in high school I went through a period of being absolutely lost in life and not knowing where to go, which ultimately culminated in a girl that I had a massive crush on rejecting me. I was super sad and just completely lost and was just spinning my wheels at that point. One night I had a dream, not a typical dream, it was just someone's face. I woke up and instantly knew what to do. Sadly, I don't remember the first task. It was righting a wrong with someone, although I don't really remember what it was, sadly. However, it was quick and fairly easy aside from swallowing my pride, obviously. I did it in about a day and went on with my life. About 2 weeks later I had another dream, which again was just a face. I instantly knew what to do again. There was a girl in grade 10 that I had a crush on, and I found out that she didn't like me back. Being a socially awkward 15-year-old, I let my friend convince me to stop talking to her by asking for nudes. A pretty garbage move, I know. I resolved that I needed to apologize to her for being a dick and ruining what could have turned into a friendship 1.5 years later, mind you, so I decided to do it within the week and did it the last day. I'm still waiting further instructions, but I doubt I'll get them. Whatever it was, it started me on my journey to be an all-around better person. So a couple years back I was a lowly little PFC in the Marine Corps. I was on fire watch, walking my 500th lap of the barracks around 2 AM, freezing my ass off. The barracks building was 3 stories of catwalks. The only interior parts were the actual barracks rooms. I'm on the 3rd floor and walking near the far corner of the building, farthest from the office, and the least occupied section. This was the side closest to an old Navy building that had been decommissioned years prior due to asbestos or something similar. Very dilapidated and not a lot going on. This corner was notorious for an exterior light going out. It was always either flickering or just dead. Rumor had it they tried replacing it a few times and gave up. Military budgets, old building, etc. Anyway, I round the corner and I see this silhouette figure standing in the corner under this flickering light. At first I thought it was one of the Marines sneaking into a girl's room for some fun or vice versa. Told them, hey, just go back to a room. As I said that, this feeling of dread smacks me in the face as the silhouette moved. It was a lot taller than I first saw, and I'm 6'4", and it seemed taller than me. The movement didn't look human, something was just off, and the strongest gust of wind comes through this corridor in my direction, nearly knocking me over. I didn't look back. I ran my ass back to the office and told the officer I was on duty with about what happened. Oh, you met the ghost? You can stay the rest of your watch in here. A few years ago I was really into going to cemeteries and taking photos. It wasn't anything bad, I just wanted to see if anything would pop up on my camera. One night I pulled up to a cemetery and pulled out my phone. I took a photo and saw an orb which I thought was cool. I went to take another photo and my phone skitzed it and shut down. It would not turn back on at all. Until I was driving out of the cemetery it came back to life, so to speak. Definitely think someone was there that night that did not want their photo taken. So this was in the summer of 2013. I was asleep in my bed, and then I heard my door open a little bit. I turn over slightly to see who was there, and all I can remember seeing was a silhouette of a tall man just watching me. My older cousin was living us that summer because of an internship opportunity in town, and I thought it was him, but by the time I woke up, he was at his internship. A few years later, I came to an idea that the silhouette was probably my dad, died in 2003. I was too scared to really look at what that body was, but I just think of the massive height of this black figure, and my dad was 6'10", so, man shrugging. Was sleeping, and around 3:32 in the morning, I was woken up by someone screaming at the top of their lungs from outside my window. It only lasted for a second or two, but it was enough for me to look out the window and see a girl no older than 20 hauling ass down the sidewalk. I didn't see anybody come after her, but being half awake and seeing that, I was terrified. Another time was when I was on my phone around midnight and heard a subtle knock on my door. I almost shit myself. I stayed awake the entire night and kept my box cutter in my hand. When I was a kid, a dark shadow with a really evil-looking white smile was crawling up my wall and moving towards me, which caused me to scream like I'm being murdered. My dad ran in trying to calm me, but to no avail. I sat there crying and having panic attacks for about 4 hours. Noah has a history of paranormal incidents, but that was the worst and has affected me the most. This is a long story, so stay patient. When I was about 15 I was laying in bed and I felt like someone was watching me, but no one was in the room and my blinds were closed. I then closed my eyes to sleep again and the feeling wouldn't go away, so I opened them one more time, and in the corner of my bedroom was a tall dark shadow figure of a man just standing there. I got out of there and told my mom what I saw, and she told me she had seen him too before, standing at the end of her bed. That night I tried to talk to him and told him if he wants to stay here show me by pushing my door open. 30 seconds later my door opens. That was enough ghost stuff for me, and I called my grandma who has experience with this, and she told me to sage salt bless and push the ghosts out. Next day after doing this, the ghost, we later named him Will, so I'm going to refer to him as that, was gone. All is fine in the house for about 2 weeks when I have dream and Will is in it, but he is a real person and he is standing in our kitchen and he just looks at me and says, "Taylor, I'm not here to hurt you, I'm here to help you. I'm sorry I scared you, and so because I scared you I'll answer one question." Then the world starts spinning and my mom and I are standing with Will on this lawn next to a tall building with a lot of windows. He then turns and tells us to ask, and my mom asks a stupid question, then Will laughs and the world spins. Then I wake up. I tell my mom and sister about my dream. Then a month later my mom has a seizure, and when they do a CAT scan it shows she has a brain tumor the size of a grapefruit. They rush her to St. Joseph's in Phoenix for surgery. As we are walking up to where they have her, we walk straight to the place in my dream. I told my sister and we both freaked out. After my mom got all her tumor out and had no rehab or changes in personality or anything, and we got to leave in 2 weeks, which is all around unheard of, especially for having a brain tumor the size of a grapefruit on the left frontal lobe. We get home and none of us saw Will ever again.